Thank you very much, Nicola. And welcome everyone to this exciting session, as Nicola introduced. After lunch, always a bit challenging, but I think what you're going to hear today from the gentlemen that are here with me on the podium is indeed exciting and very encouraging when it comes to rural electrification and increasing access in all of sub-Saharan Africa, because Uganda is really always been seen as a shining star. And today's panelists are going to show some lessons learned and some pathways that Uganda has chosen on the way to increase and accelerate rural electrification. My name is Karin Reiss-Haimbala. I work for the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. Our mandate is to work with our partner countries on inclusive and sustainable industrial development. As you can imagine, energy is a big enabler for industrial development in sub-Saharan Africa. So we are working with governments, such as with Uganda, on developing and implementing projects to accelerate access to sustainable energy for productive use and for industrial development. Now it's only about Uganda anymore, and I will soon hand over the word to the first speaker. But before, I would just quickly let you know who is with me here on the panel. And I start with the gentleman to my left, Paul Kamoga, who is a data administrator for Aptech Africa. He will share his experience later on. We have Commissioner Ryan Isabirye, Commissioner for Renewable Energy in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development in Uganda. We have Mr. Denis Ariho, who is the lead technical expert for energy efficient lighting and appliances for a regional organization called EACREEE, based in Uganda. We have Luca Traini, Access to Energy Manager for for Africa Foundation. And we have Ido Verhagen, Managing Director of the Foundation Rural Energy Services. So quite a lot of expertise here with me on the panel. Before we go into the discussion, we will hear how does the market look like, Mr. Commissioner? The floor is yours, and I think we have to pitch here. This is our opportunity to showcase why Uganda is the right place to invest. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Karin, for the introduction and having us. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want now to use this opportunity to take you through why you should be investing in Uganda. I think that's very important, such that when we listen to the other presentations, now we'll be getting the other questions answered. I will speak about the business and investment opportunities in Uganda, just a snapshot, and then I'll leave the rest of the panelists to speak about the other details that might not have been highlighted well in the presentation. The quick introduction about Uganda and why we should be thinking about investing in Uganda. As you already know, Uganda is the Pearl of Africa, so it's one of the best places to invest in this continent. And it's one of the places that is growing fastest within this region of East Africa, but also in Africa. It's one of those places where foreign direct investment is quite attractive. If you look at all the countries compared, as per the report of 2017, Uganda ranks amongst the highest areas where foreign direct investment takes place. But we also have highly competitive costs of labor. So if you're looking for cheap labor in this continent, Uganda is one of those places where you will have to stop. We also have a strong natural base, which endows us with a lot of resources, particularly renewable energy and other such resources that we can use in our access. And we were amongst the best countries in this continent in management of COVID. However, business also has to be done in a social setup. And we know that we are one of those countries where you'll make friends easily. Globally, we rank number 6, and no one wants to do business in a hostile environment. And a few other such benefits, such as having the capital city that is one of the most livable areas. So if you want to choose where to invest, then Uganda becomes one of those destinations. Now, in terms of the energy sector, as you already note, we have the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development that has the 3 directorates, where one of the directorates is the Directorate of Energy Resources. And this directorate now works along with other agencies. You have agencies that deal with generation, transmission and distribution, but also working closely with other ministries, because if you're doing, for example, hydro, then you work with water. If you're doing, you need to do financing, then you're dealing with the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning. So as a country, we have a vision, which is Vision 2040, where we are looking at transforming most of the Ugandans from their currently predominantly peasant setup to a modern and prosperous community. That is the target of up to 2040. And we are sure and confident, optimistic that we can achieve this if we strengthen our fundamentals or abilities to harness the immense natural resources such as sunshine, water, and geothermal, and the others that we have across the country. And as a country, we've set a target that if we are going to go universal, we are planning to have up to over 41,000 megawatts generated as a country if we are going to have universal access. And that would come from the different sources, solar being one at 5,000, but also the others contributing. We are also currently developing our nuclear as part of our clean energy aspirations. However, currently, the country stands at a low access. We are at 57%, which is mostly off-grid, 38%, and only 19% is coming from the grid. Our clean cooking is not clean enough so far. We are currently only at 1% for households and institutions cooking with clean energy, and our share of clean energy for cooking is quite low. To a business community like these are opportunities that we should be looking at harnessing, because within the country, we have a number of enabling policies and regulatory frameworks that make investment in energy quite an opportunity. I want to also share about some of the key players currently in the sector. We have a lot of development partners, private and non-profit and non-profit that are active within the sector in Uganda. European Union being one of them. There are a number of projects under support or that have been supported in the past by European Union. For example, the Uganda Green Enterprise Finance Accelerator and a few others, including the COVID-19 Economic Relief Fund, which was specific for off-grid solar and cook stoves in that sector. We also have a number of projects under World Bank. One key one that will be launched this year is the Uganda Electricity Access Scale-Up Project, which is a $638 million US, both grant and loan facility that will look at grid extension, and strengthening, build connections, but also look at the clean sector, clean cooking sector. There are also a number of projects supported by USAID, some of which have actually been technical support to develop our readiness for investment as a country. Outside that, there are a few other partners, UK, FCDO, UNCDF, UNDP, and others that are active within the sector in Uganda, which again should be a welcome knowledge that we can invest, because we have supporting us the sector. Now, in terms of financing of the DREs in the country, the number of options at the country level, some as debt, some grant, equity, mezzanine, or a blend of all of those. And I have just listed some of them. And of course, most of these are supported by the different development partners that I have already alluded to. In terms of where you can invest your money, there are a number of investment opportunities for companies and some investors that will want to take place. In a recent assessment, we realized that while there are opportunities for financing already at the country level now, still financing and funding DRA is an opportunity that we should be thinking of taking on. However, in terms of rural electrification, there are also opportunities for energy equity, particularly extending power to the last mile segments of the country. Another emerging area is in productive use of energy, particularly for social infrastructure like health centers and schools, but increasingly being an agriculture-dominated country, also opportunities along the agriculture value chain exist. So you have a whole list of those, including investments that are starting around the green hydrogen development. So far, our revised policy captures green hydrogen as one of those clean sources, and so would be inviting partners to come and invest with us. We have done a planning, a master plan for the country, and from that master plan, we know where investments should be targeted. If you want to invest in solar home systems, the National Electrification Strategy has identified some of the areas that you can go to, particularly in northern Uganda where the grid has not reached. And if you're interested in investing in hydro mini grids, there are also some areas, particularly in West Nile, which is off, but also in other areas in the Far East. The Rural Electrification Program had also come up with the priority mini grid, some of which have just been launched, like the ones in the north, and some were in Rubirizi and Kasese, but there are other mini grids that soon should come up for tendering as the time moves. However, across the country, we have also identified areas as part of our electrification strategy where mini grids would be a priority. I've just highlighted those across the country. So all those that you're seeing in yellow are the priority, are the highlighted mini grids that should be part of our phased rollout in the national electrification strategy. Currently, our generation is as stated, and we also have identified several areas where we have the substations. However, the other area of investment would be in transmission and distribution. So we have identified the planned, those that you see in dots are the ones that are planned for grid extension. Then we have where the MV lines are and the current distribution line. So if anyone is interested in investing in a transmission line, then those are the areas that have been planned for grid extension. And of course, as you prioritize the mini grids, you should also be able to see where the grid is likely to be if you must eventually evacuate. I thought also I should finish with this slide, which will mention some of the initiatives or some of the things that are going on in the country. We are still recovering from COVID pandemic. So when COVID hit, there were effects both at the supply and demand side. In the country, there were closures of movements. So when people were not allowed to move across the country, then that also affected, sometimes in the positive sense, but also mostly in the negative sense, the suppliers, but also the consumers. I think one highlight to mention would be that the health centers now needed, most of the resources were diverted to power health center value chains, such that the cold chains systems are powered. We have also had some successful public-private partnerships, and here I'm mentioning the ones in Bujagali and Kaluma. However, as a country and as we discuss here, we still need further support or investments for DREs. Particularly, there is need for investment or support for companies to do the investment support and financial products which are tailored to the setup in the country, because some of the financing that has come has not been tailored to the country setup. We also need to make sure that the commercial banks in the country are also being catalyzed to be able to give loans that speak to the green or the clean energy agenda. So capacity building becomes key, both technical assistance, but also building capacity building of doing capacity building for institutions. Finally, and in the interest of time, we are requesting that we get investments for programs that are more inclusive, but also competitive, particularly for indigenous or the small sector players. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Isabirye. I think this was an excellent overview, very good introduction, and a very good pitch for coming to Uganda and invest. I'm sure there are plenty of questions, but before that, I would invite the next presenter, who is Mr. Denis Ariho, who works for the for EACREEE as a lead technical expert. And in his presentation, he will highlight a bit more why the interlink between energy access and energy efficiency is so crucial. Denis, please.
Yeah, thank you, Karin. Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Denis Ariho, the lead technical expert for the Energy Efficient Lighting and Appliances Project, ELA. I'm based at the East African Center of Excellence for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, which is in Kampala. So my presentation is on the business and investment opportunities in renewable electrification in Uganda, and looking at the lessons learned from the ELA project. So I'm going to give more explanation about this project. So the Energy Efficient Lighting and Appliances Project in East and Southern Africa, ELA, looks at the development of vibrant markets for energy efficient lighting and appliances in both the East African community and the SADC region. And energy efficiency is very important for energy access, because we need to mind about which appliances and equipment that consume the energy. So this project is looking at the energy efficiency aspect of electrification. The ERA approach to change, it looks at the market incentives, and this is mainly for the private sector, and then also issues of standards through the minimum energy performance standards, capacity building for the different stakeholders, and then creating awareness for energy efficiency across the entire energy system and the entire value chain. This project is funded by Swedish International Cooperation Agency in collaboration with UNIDO. UNIDO is the lead implementer, working with EACREEE, SACREE, CRASP, and the Swedish Energy Agency. I can give a little. So considering the renewable energy electrification in Uganda, just adding in on what Commissioner Brian has talked about, we realize that there are a lot of resources in Uganda for renewable energy investments. And these hydropower, wind, solar, geothermal, biomass, among others. And we can see that the primary energy consumption is about 15.2 million tons of oil equivalent as of 2018, and the generation capacity at 1,182 megawatts. The electricity consumption per capita is still very low, which is at 100 kilowatt hour in 2019. There are a number of targets for access in the National Development Plan 3. One, increasing the proportion of the population with access to electricity from 24% in the financial year 2020-2021 to 60% in the financial year 2024-2025. And there's also a target to increase per capita electricity consumption from 100 kilowatt hours to 578 kilowatt hours. Then also increase the share of clean energy from 88% For clean cooking, there's another up to 50%. Then also ensuring that there's an increase in the transmission capacity and the grid stability and reliability of up to 90%. So we can see that most of the generation is from hydropower. There's also some from thermal, a little from solar, and cogeneration. And the energy consumption is mainly in the industry, commercial, and residential. And there is already an energy efficiency and conservation bill, which is yet to become into law, and there's an energy efficiency roadmap. And there are already minimum energy performance standards which were developed for lighting, refrigerators, air conditioners, motors, transformers in 2009. And through the ERA project, we are now looking at the regional minimum energy performance standards for lighting, residential refrigerators, and room air conditioners, which will replace these ones. So Uganda has about 34 known installed mini grids, and these are very relevant for the decentralized renewable energy. And the current capacity is around 56.8 megawatts, which is 6% of the total installed capacity. And most of these mini grids are 40% solar and hydro 34%. There is already a master plan which has been developed by the Renewable Electrification Agency, which is also being updated, and it indicates where the potential for mini grids is across the country, and also how many households will benefit from these mini grids by 2029. Then still there's a target to increase, to construct more, about 200 mini grids, which are off-grid from renewable energies. And this is a potential for investment. And as we do that, then we need to look at also energy efficiency in the whole energy system. And promote use of renewable energy solutions. This is issues of productive use. Solar water heating, solar drying, solar cookers, wind water pumping solutions, among others. And then there's also a target on electric transport solutions, such as solar-powered motorcycles, bicycles, and tricycles. But along all of that, energy efficiency is very, very relevant. In the ERA project, we have done a number of studies. These are basically baseline studies for lighting, for cooling, and also market study and supply chain analysis for productive use appliances. And from this study, we have been able to understand the productive use applications in Uganda. One is on motor-driven applications like grain milling, hulling, threshing, among others. Then there are also opportunities for water pumping, for cooling, especially like refrigeration, for agricultural products. Then issues of milk chillers, especially for dairy. And then we have also identified that actually Uganda is flooded with inefficient and low quality energy products. And this is affecting the market. As we promote energy access, we need to mind about the products that are in the market. So you find it is very hard to find, for example, efficient lights, batteries, solar batteries, among others. And that is hurting the market and affecting the way perceive off-grid solutions. There are no labels for energy products, and that is also another opportunity that we have to look into. And there's also limited testing facilities. So you find you are not able to test whether this is an efficient panel, this is a good battery, cables. Most of them you find they are the good ones and actually the low quality ones. So in the ERA project, in the EAC, we have done standards, supported standards for lighting, residential refrigerators, and air conditioners. And already the process is ongoing for the EAC still the maps for lighting are in the final stage. They are waiting now political approval, but the technical process has been completed. So standards development and enforcement supports the deployment of energy efficient appliances for productive use. So as we focus on access, let us not forget standards, labeling, testing, among others. Then also the project looks at the business support and market development, because we would want the private sector to take lead. So we developed the private sector strategy and also the ERA technical assistance and co-financing facility, looking at supporting energy efficiency business models, looking at cooling as a service, heating as a service, lighting as a service, energy performance contracting, among others. So we would need also such a financing facility to also go for decentralized renewable energy options, in addition to the options that are available in the market. Then procurement for lighting testing equipment. The project procured the portable lighting testing equipment for each of the countries in the 2 EAC and SADC region.
1
and
minute
Uganda
left,
benefited.
please.
So the project also looked at capacity building. It is very important that we do capacity building and in different areas. And we are focusing on productive use. We need to look at how to skill technicians and engineers to be able to have to work on the systems very well. Yeah, thank you very much.
Denis, for highlighting this important need to really have an interlinked approach of access and efficiency. After this very interesting setting the scene presentations, I will now go to the first panelist, who is Mr. Ido Verhagen, who is the Managing Director of the Foundation for Rural Energy Services. You are very active in rural electrification in the Ugandan market. From what we have heard right now, could you tell us a little bit more about the approach that FRES has taken in Uganda to contribute to renewable energy access, but also maybe highlight a little bit of the challenges? I think the presenters also pointed out, although there's a lot going on, there are still obstacles for a full market penetration. So please.
Thank you, and good afternoon. So yes, my name is Ido Verhagen from the Foundation Rural Energy Services, and we became active in rural electrification in 1999, so over 20 years now. But we started in Uganda in 2010. And we see energy as a service. And we do mini grids in West Africa, solar home systems, but in Uganda we just do solar home systems. And we see energy as a service. And in our case, that means that we don't sell solar home systems, but we install solar home systems at the houses of our customers, and we retain ownership. So our customers pay a monthly service fee, and in return, we do the installation, we do all the maintenance, and we replace the batteries at the end of their lifetime for that same price. And if a customer would want to cancel the contract, we take the system away and install it somewhere else. So we make very sustainable use of our assets. It's as circular and as environmentally friendly as possible. And to be able to do all this, we need, of course, teams, technical teams, that we train ourselves. So we employ and we train people in the local area. So it's not just access that we do, or access to energy what we do, but you will also create employment and are as environmentally friendly as possible. And in Uganda, interesting, if I compare to other countries where we're active, interesting in Uganda is it's quite a crowded space. So it's very competitive. And we see that our offering is especially appreciated by companies, but also by rural clinics and schools, because we have larger systems, larger often than the kits that are available in the market. And also the schools and businesses and clinics, they have something else to do than worry about their energy system. So they are glad that we do it for them. So 50% of our customers in Uganda are businesses and small businesses and schools and clinics. So in that sense, I feel that we are really adding a critical contribution to the rural electrification in Uganda. And when we talk about challenges, I think they are, if I compare to other countries, they're not really different in Uganda than in other countries. Of course, regulation, clarity about policies, predictability also about how policies are applied. But I do see some opportunities that are different than other countries. So compared to, for instance, Mali or Burkina Faso or Guinea-Bissau, where we're active, it's easier to find skilled labor in Uganda in rural areas. It's also compared to Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, it's a stable country. In the other countries, I lost track the amount of coup d'etats, but Uganda is at least a stable country. So in that respect, it's a country where we like to be active.
I will come back with more questions to you in the second round. Let's move to Luca, please. Rest for Africa and its membership does have a very large expertise in both on-grid and off-grid market segments across Africa. You do have a recent initiative developed calling the Missing Link. Could you tell us a little bit about this initiative in general, about Rest for Africa, and also what are the lessons learned for the initiative when it comes to the market penetration of electrification?
Yeah, thank you. And first of all, thanks for having me. So 2 words on what is Rest for Africa Foundation. We are basically a network of private sector members, both from Europe and Africa, and with the aim of creating an enabling environment and accelerating investment in renewable energy, both large-scale and small-scale projects. So we have members from Siemens Gamesa, PwC, Enel Green Power, Schneider Electric, Vestas, and so on. So covering more or less the whole value chain, and these give us an opportunity to bring the perspective of the point of view of the private sector, which is usually what the organization talk about when they say we need to bring and to leverage on private sector investments. So what we do basically is several kind of activities from analysis, market analysis, technology analysis, and we use that analysis that all the publication, you can find it free and available on our website. Then we use those to convey message and the perspective of the private sector on the market and how to accelerate investment, both in different perspective, from the investment financing mechanism, grid development, investment development, access to energy, but of course also policy and regulation. We do also a lot of support to youth and entrepreneurs through capacity building and other kind of activities. And in the case of policy and regulation, we come back to the point of the initiative, the Missing Link, through which we are analyzing policy and regulation of 17 African countries. Some of those, the report is already available on our website. Other, such as the Uganda one, will be available later on this year. And through that, we were able to understand a bit more the market and to provide, again, our point of view on the market. So what is our take on Uganda? As you already said, this is a success story at the end of the day. So Uganda was able to attract investment. And when we said that, we have to put it into perspective, meaning that we talk always about Africa and renewable energy. But if we look at the macro picture, meaning the whole continent, what happened the last 10 years, basically very little. So we are talking to a market that has done very little in the last 10 years. If we look at the whole global installed capacity in the last 10 years, just 2% was installed in African countries. And how this is divided is basically 50% is in North Africa and South Africa. If we take together Morocco, Egypt, and South Africa, they cover about roughly 60% of the all investment in renewable energy of the last 10 years. So there is very little for the other countries. But in this case, I believe that Uganda, given also the specific market it has, is a really success story through which they were able, through reforms, to be able to really attract investors. So at the end, what you just said, we're talking about what 1,200 megawatt. We can now say that about roughly 50% of that is from private IPP, which is, I think it's a great success. It means Uganda has policy and regulation that enable to attract investors. So from generation, and these of course go back to the work that the government has done, from the unbundling, from the incentives to the private sector to enter the market, but also through the unbundling and the work has done to reduce, let's say, all the losses from transmission distribution that were halved in the last 10 years. So we are really talking about a country that is doing a lot to create an enabling environment for investment.
A lot. What I'm hearing is we need scale. Maybe, Commissioner, we will come back to you on that question, how do we get scale later on. But first, I think I'd like to invite Paul now to talk a little bit more about Aptech Africa. Tell us what the company is doing. It's an EPC. And I think you have a lot of experience in the Ugandan market. We would like to hear your experiences and also some recommendations that you would have for the future.
Thank you very much, Karin. My name is Paul Kamoga. I'm a data administrator for Aptech Africa Limited. We are operational in 7 African countries, and we are an EPC company, engineering, procurement, and construction. I also happen to take lead on the Pay and Pump project that is funded by the Energy Catalyst. We have a booth somewhere up there, an exhibition hall. It's a pay-as-you-go solar water pumping system, irrigation for small-scale farmers, 1 to 5 acres of land, and mostly doing horticulture. Some of the opportunities that we have seen in the Ugandan market, first of all, there's a productive use of energy in agri-tech. As I speak, Pay and Pump is the only project that is being carried on that enables someone to use a water pumping system, a very expensive water pumping system, at a very, very subsidized rate. So you can imagine if a small-scale farmer cannot even raise maybe about $30 a month, and they're using a system, a pumping system, to irrigate their crops at a very, very low price. That's very interesting. And for me to tell you that we are the only people that are doing it at the moment, there's a very big gap, and the market is still underserved. The second thing is fishing. I happen to do a lot of outreaches, and I go out to different people, different places. But these people are they are not served a lot. So we are looking at solar pico products, and to realize that recently in May, the Parliament passed it passed mouth fishing and made it legal, which previously was illegal. And also you have to be aware that mouth fishing is very lucrative. It's also very healthy. In the European market, it's something big. Also, I would like to address cold chain. There are very many, in Uganda we have some of the best soil for growing horticulture, growing flowers. But you notice that cold chain is still a problem. There are not so many people that know about it or do it, so there's still a gap there. And some of the recommendations say recommendations or improvements. We want to improve local financing and make sure that, just like the commissioner mentioned, that commercial banks go down to last mile and they design products that are tailored to the customer. And also capacity building, this one everyone has talked about it, to make sure that we have qualified technicians that are able to pass on knowledge to the end user. Yes.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Very, very interesting. I think we want to hear a lot more about you and to see you grow. Back to Ido. Your company, your foundation, does have a lot of experience on the market. Now, what would be your message to the sector, to the DRE sector in general? Where are the real opportunities to go to scale? What is needed, and what do you recommend to other companies?
Well, we are ourselves active. So I started, I wasn't active within FRES in 2010 when we started in Uganda, but we're active in the Southwest. And personally, I would have never started in the Southwest because you could have known that the grid was expanding in the Southwest. There's more to do in the North and more to do in the West, although the West, I'm told by our staff, is quite poor. So maybe energy as a service wouldn't work there. But we are not the only one in the Southwest. It seems like everybody is crowding in the Southwest. So if you want to reach scale and if you want to reach 100% connection rate in Uganda, I would encourage everybody to, and the Commission has shown the regions that are available, go north and make sure that we cover all the country and don't crowd in the same space.
Interesting suggestions. I think we note down this one, and I hope the recommendation also receives the other developers. Luca, what do you think are key ingredients of a successful public-private partnership, and what are your recommendations basically to accelerate these PPPs in the Ugandan market?
Yeah, I mean, the point of the public-private partnership is always a tricky one. So, does they exist? So we all talk about it, but then when we go on ground, there were very few examples. It's really a misused word. And while on the other side, we would really need it. So meaning that. Like if we go to the Uganda case, the Uganda was really able on the generation side to attract a lot of investors. Somebody might say that if we already add the available generation capacity plus the pipeline, it might be even more than what the forecast will give for the next years. And so there is the other side. So there is the transmission and distribution. And I believe that several governments, also the Uganda one, is working also to understand how to leverage partnership in transmission and distribution with the private sector. So we don't have to forget that for any dollar we put on generation, we should put $1 for transmission and distribution. And to mention again one success story of Uganda, there was back some years ago an interesting research of the World Bank about the situation, the businesses of utility in sub-Saharan Africa. So the result at that time was that out of 39 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, just 2 were able to cover capital and operational costs, meaning that the other 37 were operating in default. Those 2 were Seychelles and Uganda. So meaning that those massive investments that will be needed in transmission and distribution, because at the end of the day, we have to use and absorb and evacuate somehow those new generation has to go somewhere. And those 2 sectors, so transmission and distribution, we see as the new 2 sectors where public-private partnership can leverage the expertise and the capacity, both in terms of technical capacity, but also in terms of investment capacity, to join forces and to develop this sector, particularly because, and we mention a lot also, where the energy should go, meaning that the productive uses of energy should be implemented. We remember that if we go beyond just Uganda case, but to sub-Saharan Africa more generally, 80% is not of the energy is not going to productive uses, is going to households. And there was another interesting research reporting that 80% of companies in sub-Saharan Africa were experiencing frequent interruption of the services, which estimated for about 2.5 GDP percentage point, which if you say that in Europe, that will would be a massive number. So we have to also prioritize the provision of reliable and sustainable energy services also to companies, because those are, of course, it's really important to provide electricity for all, but those are the one that create better economic condition than for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed, thanks a lot. I'm picking up on productive use, and I'm coming back to Paul. I think what you said is quite interesting. I mean, your company is providing a very critical services, and I was wondering if you could share your thoughts. Why do you think you are the only one at the market doing this? And what do you think is needed to scale up?
Thank you very much. I would say the biggest reason why we are the only company that is doing pay-as-you-go for solar water pumping is, first of all, there is not enough financing to take on the initiative to serve small-scale farmers. And even the people that, the other companies that are doing solar water pumps do not want to take on the risk to go down to a small-scale farmer. So you find that they are designing products that are only for someone who is producing probably, they have like thousands and thousands of acres. They do not want to work with someone who has a higher risk of maybe defaulting or has a higher risk of not being able to sell their products on the market. So yeah, they go back and look at, does this farmer really, are they able to export their products after they've grown them, and are they able to handle post-harvest challenges? So there's quite a number of factors here, starting from post-harvest handling to off-takers to other agricultural value chain contributors. Yeah.
But you would do it again, right?
Yes, but for us, we shall do it, and we are hoping to scale because we actually plan to do 60 more installations in the coming few months.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks.
I think it's time to open the floor. Colleagues, very exciting insights that we've heard so far. Are there any questions from participants in the audience? Yes, the gentleman in the back.
Hello, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon at this point. I am Michael Kuntz with Tulima Solar. We provide pay-as-you-go solar water pumps in Uganda. We have about 12 different pumps in our lineup, and everything is leased to own. And so I very much appreciate the work that Aptech Africa is doing, and we very much are aligned with Paul in the focus on the full farmer value chain. And this question, therefore, is directed at Brian and Denis. To what extent are you working in the area of productive uses of energy? Are you engaged with the Ministry of Agriculture, of the other ministries that would have an interest in collaborating in promoting programs that can support productive uses of energy? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who wants to go first?
You want? Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much. I'll take on that question, but I thought I should mention something before. We are dealing with a country where only 37% of the health centers are powered with clean energy, where only 30% at most of the schools are powered, and where 5% of irrigation comes from clean energy, meaning that's an opportunity for productive use of energy. And I know that question wasn't addressed to me, but I should just say that productive use of energy, the way we are looking at it as a ministry, of the failures of African rural electrification programs has been the deliberate elimination of productive use of energy. Sometimes in my country, we talk about connecting a grid politically, where you're just connecting a grid but not looking at what people are using. So you have grid passing over people's heads and they are not connected. So for us, we are looking at productive use of energy as an entry for escalation of rural electrification. And the question on the working and the collaboration on productive use of energy, I would say yes. We have a technical working group composed of ministries, departments, and agencies along the agriculture value chain. And recently, we have also added participants from health, schools, and other such ministries. For example, Ministry of Trade is part of that technical working group. And this technical working group is headed by someone in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, and that's where it sits. There's a whole office dedicated to collaboration of energy, which is the National Renewable Energy Platform, where there is a whole officer that coordinates the technical working group. And indeed, those that have been involved in productive use of energy for some time have been invited to this, and there are many projects that are now we are coordinating around the same office to make sure that we have a common ground and avoid duplication and increase spillovers. So you'll have a focal person in each of these ministries that sits at the National Technical Working Group, but also we are progressively decentralizing this under the decentralized plan on renewable energy development in Uganda. So at the district, you have the district energy officer that will also be the coordinator for productive use of energy.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. The ERA project focuses also on productive use, but currently on the energy efficiency in the whole chain. We need to have efficient cables, efficient pumps, efficient lights, because it has not been covered well in the project that have been implemented. So it is high time we focus a lot on energy efficiency, so that, because if energy is used efficiently, then it can be used by other people, or even save in investing in new power plants. You can delay investment in new power plants by being energy efficient. Then EACREEE, being a regional organization mandated by the East African community to promote renewable energy and energy efficiency in the region. Renewable energy and issues of productive use are among the core mandates of EACREEE. So we promote research, development, innovation, investment, capacity building in the whole renewable energy and energy efficiency, and productive use is a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I saw there's a question here in the front. We would need a microphone.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for the presentation and sharing the insights. My name is Iman Benamar, and I work for a company that designs and manufactures turbine for micro hydropower. I have a question for Sir Denis Ariho. You said earlier that Uganda lacks adequate regulations for decentralized rural electrifications. Could you give a bit more information where precisely in the process you feel that the regulation is lacking today? What initiatives are currently ongoing to mitigate this, and maybe also hear something from Paul or Ido to see what pitfalls you encountered when starting up in the region. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The energy policy of Uganda of 2002 You see, from 2002 to now is a long period. And also the renewable energy policy of 2007. So all those policies were developed, but some of these issues of decentralized renewable energy were not well captured. But there is the policy, the new policy which is being developed, the energy policy, which is still in draft form. I think Commissioner will talk about it, and issues of decentralized renewable energy, issues of mini grids, clean cooking are being included. So it is going to be a holistic approach that that will promote investments in decentralized renewable energy, because the grid will not reach everywhere. Looking at the settlements, the way they are in the Uganda, you find it may be very costly to extend the grid. And yet, if there's no much productive use, you find it's very expensive. So decentralized renewable energy is the solution. And this can also be done through mini grids. Thank you.
Thank you, Denis. Anybody wants to respond to this question? Otherwise, yeah, Ido? Yes.
Can be an issue in Uganda, but that's the same in other countries. So as I explained, we do energy as a service, and that concept is not always understood. And that is something that I don't understand. Because if you want market-based approaches, and if you invite the private sector, you invite diversity. And you have to support diversity. And if regulations, maybe it's not literally so, but actually all about kids, then you're not supporting diversity, then you're supporting one solution. And that's something that we see in many African companies. So try to develop regulation that supports and promotes diversity, because that is what private sector is about, providing choice to customers.
Thanks a lot. I have a question there, yeah.
Thank you for the insights. My name is Daniel Kitwa from GreenMax. Just to build on the question on regulation, I just wanted to get clarity based on the policy updates that are happening, especially focused on three key aspects. One, on the mini grid sector, we know that the current regulations as is, basically the government finances the distribution assets, while the mini grid developer or the operator focuses on the generation assets. Does that still go on? And also maybe how do we improve on that based on the challenges that have been in terms of coordinating the construction and approvals? And also second one is mainly around the issue of the tariff, because I think developers have had challenges getting approvals beyond a certain limit. And then the third one is just looking at other markets like Nigeria that now are trying to incorporate interconnected mini grids. How are the policy sort of activities around those as well in the next phase of improvements? Thank you.
I can take that. Thank you very much. You raise very important points. I'll start with the last on interconnection. We've been running a pilot of Utility 2.0, where we are assessing many things around mini grid development, both as an enabler for connection, but also looking at what happens when the grid arrives. And the ERA with the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development are developing guidelines, reviewing those that exist, and developing guidelines that will allow us to have a framework that is clear for investors on the interconnection when the grid arrives. And I can say by close of this year, those guidelines should be done, because the pilot interconnection should happen before end of August. So the guidelines should be clear. We have some drafts, but using the evidence that we got from Utility 2.0, we are working on that. On the evacuation, still it stays that the developer does the generation, and evacuation to cut down the capex is done by government. In the past, particularly for mini grids, it's been by Rural Electrification Agency, which is now Rural Electrification Program under the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. That has not changed, because we think it's the only way we can cut down on the capex and make the tariffs, or try to pursue grid parity, which we are working on. Coordinating constructions and approvals. The ministry is developing an integrated energy resources plan for the country, building onto the work done by NRECA on the master plan for rural electrification, which will now make it easy for you to walk into Uganda, know which mini grids are available in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. This work is building onto an existing database that was developed by NRECA or master plan for REA, and it should be done in the shortest time possible. Then we shall be able to sequence all these mini grids and other developments that private sector would want to have and make it easier for you to know the process and what it takes. As it stands now, sometimes it's not very clear. I know ERA is working on tendering out these mini grids, but there will be still need for more developments around our planning as a country, so that we avoid a lot of dimmed energy. As you realize, close to 50% of our energy is dimmed. So generation was running ahead of distribution and transmission. To synchronize generation, transmission, and distribution, we needed a comprehensive master plan. And that is work in progress that should be done. So then you should know which mini grids in which locations will come on for bidding in the next 2, 3, 4 years. That's something that is coming up. On the tariffs determination, again, I think that is, we are unfortunate as a country, and I think I should mention this. In a normal world, the country must do the pre-feasibility studies and identify what it takes to invest in a given area. Then when the investor comes in the country, they now have to do due diligence on the studies and can be able to negotiate. In our case, and in most of these African countries where we don't have enough resources, the investor invests in the pre-feasibility, then comes to ERA, UETCL to negotiate a tariff. Now that puts the government in a funny position because you're negotiating with someone when you don't have data. So one of the things we are doing is to package these projects through several requests for technical assistance. We want to package most of these. And now when you go to use the database that REA developed under NRECA support with NRECA collaboration, we know the price of each of those mini grids and we can negotiate what the tariff will be because we know how much we'll invest in evacuation. So the challenge has been negotiation without data and information, which we are addressing as a country going forward.
Thank you very much for this detailed elaborations. I think we can see we have the right man in the right position in the ministry to drive the process. We are coming to the end of the session, and I would just like to give like 15 seconds to each of the speakers. If you have a recommendation to the funding institutions, and they have a pot of $50 million and they would like to invest in the DRE sector in Uganda, what would you recommend them to do? How to design their program? Maybe we start with Ido.
Well, something I would like to say is I note a difference between what's said on stage and what is said in the corridors. On stage, I hear everybody talking about loans and debt and loans and debt and loans and debt. And in the corridors, everybody's telling each other like, debt? No way. Impossible. Impossible. So I think that's something to figure out. We can work for certain segments, certainly with debt, entrepreneurs. With households, it's impossible. So if we can't find grants anymore, then we have to raise our tariffs for households, for schools, for clinics, and then it will just simply become unaffordable. So we need grants.
Thanks a lot. Please.
Yeah, I do, of course, agree with Ido about the fact that these markets not yet mature, and to invest, you need to heavily subsidize the sector. But what probably the sector is looking from the financing institutions is to reduce fragmentation. Back some years ago, we did an analysis and we saw how many instruments, particularly in European level, we have, how fragmented they are, and usually how they do not cover the phases of a project cycle of a private investors. So meaning that a private investor is facing certain risks at any stage, different risks, and those risks are not, we don't have an instrument, sort of, yesterday I heard somebody talking a one-stop shop, that's what we are looking for, that mitigate the risk along the investment process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Denis, please.
Yeah, thank you. The European Union and other development partners can invest in the productive use of energy, because a lot of efforts have been on access. And if we are to transform the market and the economies of the populations, we need to focus a lot on productive use, ensure mini grids also are developed, and many of them, and support the energy efficiency market through super ESCOs, and any other models for energy efficiency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Denis.
Paul?
Maybe Paul, before we give the final words to the Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. So from my side, I've interacted with quite a lot of people, and the pain point comes from these financiers not having a window for operations and maintenance for the projects that they decide to take on. So, yeah.
It's a very clear message. I think we give the final word.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to save seconds, so I can use slightly more time. Yeah, thank you very much. I don't want to repeat emphasis on productive use of energy, but I want to request that for any financing, let's have blended financing. If you have strict financing on one, then you're going to miss. Because as a country, we are looking at development in 4 core areas. We want to have investments in technologies, and those are quality technologies. That's one area. We want investment in capacity. Paul just mentioned O&M. It's very critical. So if you have a blended financing, you can do capacity. We want to invest in standards, guidelines, and other policy options that would drive the market. But also, we want to invest in data, information, and knowledge for advocacy and decision making. So I would want to see that. However, in terms of where the money should be put, we should look at the supply end, but also take care of the consumer end. Because you can supply a lot, but the consumers are not empowered to consume. So let us support both the supply, but also the consumer end. The very last one is that as a country, we have a Renewable Energy Conference and Expo taking place from the 3rd to 5th of November. All of you are invited because we have the whole world coming to exhibit these technologies. The many things that are going on in the country, and one of the things that is going to happen is that we shall have a one-stop center where you will have from registering a company all the way up to what it takes for you to invest in Uganda. So you can come in without a company and go out with a company and ready to invest, because investors will also be there. 3rd to 5th November, Renewable Energy Conference and Expo. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think the dates are noted down. We've come to the end, and I just would like to thank you very much for sharing all these insights, all this information. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for making your way here. I think the message is clear. We need scale. Uganda is ready, and now you know who is the address to go to. I thank the panelists. I think it's great to hear from the private sector also where are the opportunities, where are the bottlenecks. We listened a lot. We hear productive use, we hear efficiency, we hear scale. I think we need to talk more, and definitely we need to do more. So thanks everyone for joining this session, and I wish you a nice afternoon. Thanks a lot.
Now? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Karin. It was very well moderated. We now have our well-deserved coffee. I think we all need. And then the big boom at the end of the afternoon, we come back at 4. And then we go to Nigeria with the Super Eagles. So enjoy the coffee, and we are back at 4. Thank you very much.
you.